have the same experience, and one can take it in a direction of being a victim. The other one can spin it in a direction, making a decision to have it be a growth and use that for fuel to live a healthier lifestyle.
I've never been religious, never went to church, but I'm very spiritual, especially like living in Bali, right? That's one of the beautiful things. I just love the culture, and it's having business on one side, having the relationship with your wife and kids, your spirituality, your health. And when one of these is out of phase, it affects all the other ones.
I am here with Brian Swan, entrepreneur, journalist, former robotics engineer, traveling around with your family. Unstoppable Family is the brand around it. Doing some beautiful things in Bali, and avid surfer. And welcome. I'd love to start just maybe telling us a little bit about yourself. Maybe some things that you're really proud of in your life and in
Well,
your
we could start from
story.
the good, the bad. All right, well, let's just start here. Here's an interesting one that really led my wife and my daughter here to Bali. I actually came to Bali back in 1995 when I was 20 years old. I was studying in Perth, but what brought me there was my father was gay. My father actually died of AIDS when I was 16 years old. But what happened, I'm 49 years old now. So what happened, first of all, when you find out that your dad's gay back in the day, it's a very interesting, like, I remember when I was 11 or 9 years old when I found out, and I even asked my mom. I said, this one of our, and it was one of my friends. He says, your dad's gay, and I wanted to beat him up. I came home and I said, Mom, I go, Andy Lang says dad's gay, and she goes, we better have a talk. And I was like, what the? And I was like, if that's the case, how was I born? And and so it all started from there. But then when I was 11 years old, my dad, there was a shift in my dad to where he didn't say it, but he knew we had an expiration date. So he didn't know if he had, because he contracted AIDS. He didn't know if he had 6 months to live, a year to live, 2 years, 5 years, but he knew his expiration date was coming up. So he asked, my brother is 4 years older than me. My daughter, or my sister's 7 years old, and he goes, who wants to go to Europe? And let's go. So he started taking us kids traveling all around the world, sometimes individually, sometimes as a group. But I got to go see Africa. I got to go see Europe. I got to travel, do cruises, a whole bunch of things, all the way up until the day he died. So from the age of 11 to 16, I got to see what death was like. And if you can put it in perspective, think of the movie The Bucket List. You've seen the movie The Bucket List with, was it Jack Nicklaus and Morgan Freeman, and they go traveling to see all the places they do before they die. My dad did that actual trip kind of like about 10, 15 years before the movie came out. But it was from then where I knew that there's something more to life than out, inside of our little town of Cambridge, Illinois. I was 3 hours west of Chicago. So I went to University of Illinois, was doing robotics engineering, and I knew that there was something bigger, even though it was like this big university, Big Ten school, sororities, fraternities, and all this. I was like, I'm gonna go study abroad. And I went to Australia back when I was 20 years old, and that's where I got to learn how to surf. And then when I was living in Perth, my friend goes, hey, let's go up to Bali. And I'm like, what's Bali? And I got here back in 1995, and I was like, whoa, what is this? And and there was like hardly anything here, just like little villages and stuff, nothing like what we have now. But it was from there, it's like I learned how to surf, and that changed the whole trajectory of my life. And I met my wife surfing in San Diego 25 years ago, and then I was a robotics engineer for nearly a decade. My wife, she knew that there was something more to life than just working in the corporate world. And she wanted to have a family, not put our kids through daycare. So she typed in stay at home mom back in 2004 and got started with some affiliate marketing and then retired me from a robotics engineer. We lost everything in '07, '08 in the real estate bubble. And we've been traveling ever since 2008. So there's my whole story. I think the interview's done. I don't even need to say anything else.
That's the story of your life. We haven't gotten to the good part yet. And well,
Yeah,
but you're based in Bali right now for a while, so
yeah,
you have a home. You built, it sounds like you threw down
yeah.
some roots and are happy to be here. And something that was interesting to me, I did a post asking who do you know that feels like they have a really golden, beautiful relationship, and two
Hmm,
separate people
very cool.
said you. And that is, I think, a testament of whatever you're doing. And I did a little research. Your wife is a very successful
Hmm.
entrepreneur, PR company. Your teenage daughter is a successful author and
Hmm.
artist and speaker. Some might say you nailed it. You're surfing, you got the life, you're in good shape, you're 49, and so really what I'm here to talk about is in that journey, what did you learn? And what can we tell others to encourage them to get to a place where they have this beautiful house with a beautiful wife? What is that? There's a song by Talking Heads. You may find
Yeah,
yourself in another part of the world. You may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile. You may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife. You may ask yourself,
yeah.
well, how
Talking
did I
heads,
get
huh?
here? So my question to you is,
Yeah, yeah,
how, yeah,
yeah.
how did
Well,
you get
yeah.
here?
It's really got. It was from that bug of having the expiration date. And it's my own story
Mm,
versus like my even my brother and sister, they have their own story. And you have like these tragic moments in life, and we all do something different with them. Like my brother, and like he went to rehab when he was 16, getting picked on from school for your dad's gay and stuff. And it's from that story I actually made it like this triumphant like Rocky story to where I'm like, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to be the strongest kid. I'm going to be the most athletic, and I'm going to be the most and the smartest kid. So I turned this one story that turns my brother going to rehab to me, being you know the jock, right, and but also good grades, and that's where it all started. Where it's like identifying things that you're never guaranteed another day in your life, and I think that's just really in our DNA. Even with my daughter being 16 years old and she's lived in like 25 different countries, it's we respect on there's no, like we're not going to last forever. And if we're not doing what we love, then why are we doing it? And it's like, let's make an impact in the world. So it's kind of like it's, my dad didn't, we never even had these conversations. This is just my own story that I created to put me where I am. Right.
mm.
And there's nothing that this is the way to do it, or I have the best life. I'm very honored to, you said, I think it was like Rory and somebody else. I forgot who the other person you mentioned before, but Rory's a good guy. Oh, beautiful. Yeah,
I think
she's
it
a
was
beautiful woman as
Glovindria.
well too. And no, I respect that. And it was from back so when we were what's interesting is like I went to school was a robotics engineer, so it was like really high, kind of prestigious. Like I'm a robotics engineer, but I didn't give a rat's ass about doing robotics engineering. I was like, oh, I'm making six figures. I'm living in Southern California, so I can surf and I met my wife. I'm like, life is good. But my wife she's always been, you know, tilted a little differently. She's like, there can be more. There can be, she's had my vision to think bigger, think better. And it was funny, man. Like, speaking of Bali, and we're here, we actually took a Mentawais surf boat trip back in 2004. So nearly like 20 years ago, this coming uh, next year. And what's crazy is I'm going out with the Indonesian government next week to Sumatra and Mentawais and might be doing some big projects out there. Like I would, if somebody would have told me, you're like going, while you're on this, like, all right, here's what's gonna happen, brother. Okay, so you're gonna be this robotics engineer. It's gonna be cool. You're gonna meet your wife surfing. You're gonna lose everything in this big real estate deal, and uh, and then you're gonna go travel the world because there's this thing called the internet. I'll be like, what? Yeah, and you're gonna be able to travel anywhere and be able to sell shit online. It's like, no way. And then you're gonna have a daughter. She's gonna have a six-figure fashion brand, and by the age of 11, you're gonna be living in Bali. I'm like, what? Like, I don't know. So I'm surprised on everything. But one thing that's and this has been really strong with me for the last 6 months is just really going after, um, not going after. It's kind of like just it's more of like just following. Like, all right, this Sumatra thing that I'm doing here just this next week. It was there's signs and I'm like, I gotta listen. I gotta go. I gotta listen. So it's kind of just listening to the gut and the heart. I don't even know. I forgot the question you asked because I think it was a broad, big one of what did you learn. But there's some nuggets, and you can turn it anywhere from there.
I hear in there, it's just a reminder that, we can have the same experience. Two people can have the same experience, and one can take it in a direction
No.
of being a victim and really struggling, and the other one can spin it in a direction, making a decision to have it be a growth and use that for fuel to live a healthier
Yeah.
lifestyle. That's something I heard in that. And the second one I heard in that story is uh, really the difference
Hmm.
between going after something and that sort of masculine energy, and then also just listening and using that intuition, letting it come to you. And that full
Yeah.
circle, 20 years later, you're going back to a place in a completely different context. But um that's been coming up for me, this idea of like, how do I let things
Yeah.
come to me instead of chasing them, going after them? And there was a friend of mine who's in the 70s, and that was one of the lessons he was really trying to communicate that he's learned. And as we get older, how do we do that? But it sounds like you're in a place that you're starting just to listen a little bit more, that
Yeah. Maybe it's
intuition.
like being 49 and not giving, rat's ass on certain things that you used to give, fucks about. It's just like, this is what I'm doing and why it's like, you gotta go if you don't have this like this kind of like this fire and some purpose. Like for instance, it's this like the branding agency that we have. We have this together. My wife, we're co-founders of it. But there's times where I'm just like, am I leaving a big impact in the world? Is it really helping humanity? Right? And you start getting, and there's like, yeah, one of the beautiful things I do love, working with individuals and seeing them, be able to give them advice and be able to help them. But then it's like, what can I do more? It's like one of the beautiful things I love. Like we built this, but it's working with communities. I love being involved in building communities and being part of Indonesia. I consider it like my home now. Like I would go back. I love being. I'm an American. I go back. I like to go in the matrix and kind of come out, but I'm still kind of halfway in and out. It's just playing a game, right? It's you know. Now I'm allowing things to like, all right, what do you really want? And then the universe, God, Buddha, whatever, you can call it whatever you want, some source. And it gives you ask for something and you're like, that's a sign. And there's so many times where I know in the past where I just kind of you deflect it because it's like, oh, that's not, but it's like, no, it's giving you signs. So start listening. So yeah, that's kind of what's transpired. And when I'm going into 50, I started really training hard um, last year and a half because I love surfing big waves, and I started getting like beaten down and holy shit, I can't. I don't know if I can. I'm like getting too old to take these beat downs. Like, well, A, if I have to hang that up, might as well just bury me. So what can I do? Might as well just start training harder, being stronger. And now it's like I feel freaking confident. I still get my, you know, self like kicked in the face and beaten down, but it's like if you keep on going and training harder and doing cool stuff, you can. I feel like I'm going to be able to surf big waves well into my 60s now and stuff. So it's just going the extra mile too.
David Lieberman, who's an expert in sort of health and longevity, he says exercise is much more
Yeah,
important the older you get. And it's actually, when you're younger, it's not as important, but you get older, you really got to do it. You got to take care of
yeah,
yourself,
no
even if
doubt.
it's in small amounts, But if you're going to be doing big things like, tackling the big waves, and yeah, it is important, but you can keep doing it. I mean, how many people do you see that are in their 60s that are
Yeah.
surfing big waves?
Oh
It's
no,
still
and we have a
happening,
whole
right?
crew. It's funny, like the crew out of Uluwatu. It's like it used to be like 40 years old and above. Now there's the young kids coming in and stuff. But it is like it's an older crew, and and they're not the regular. Man, when my dad actually passed away when I was 49, but I remember my stepdad and I see all the other parents, they weren't doing shit, but they're always just talking, I'm too old, I'm getting old and they're then that's like you're living in that excuse of I'm getting too old and then you're a victim of I'm too old and you fall trapped to that. It's a bunch of BS.
I think it's just a testament to the same philosophy you had before, which is there's a
Yeah.
challenge, you can roll over and let it take you over, or you say, no, I'm gonna just work harder and train harder because, this is what I want, and it's probably gonna bring you a lot of happiness. And so I definitely feel that there's a lesson for everyone in that. Um, I would love to
Yeah.
shift a little bit to the relationship and that healthy relationship that people are
25 years,
noticing.
man. Like that's
Maybe
over
start a
half of
little bit
my
of your
life. It's kind
story.
of
How?
crazy when you think about it. It's
Yeah,
kind of a it's wild. Yeah. Keep going.
maybe start. How did you meet? How old you were? Were
Mm,
you friends? Love at first sight. People are
yeah.
always interested in the beginning, right? Because it's such a crucial place that we find ourselves in most of the time. Is wondering, is
Yeah.
this it?
When I met my wife, I just got my corporate job, robotics engineer. I was living in San Diego. I moved and I had a one bedroom little shit shack right on the beach on the boardwalk in San Diego. It was epic. Crappy as, but when you're right on the boardwalk, it like you didn't care how
Yeah.
crappy it was. You were boardwalk, you know? And I was out surfing right in front of my place in Jamaica Court, San Diego. And my wife, she's from Michigan, I'm from Illinois, and she comes walking by, and I'm like, I could see her walking on the boardwalk, like, oh my God, who's that? And then she paddled out. I thought she had a boyfriend, but I introduced myself out in the water, and for like 2 months, I thought she had a boyfriend. And it wasn't until like just around 4th of July that we started going out, and that was 25 years ago when I was 24 years old. So I've been with her for over half my life. Yeah.
Did you ask her out? Did you wait till you figured out she was? Or did the relationship develop without that
It was
sexual
4th of
energy in the
July,
beginning?
and just probably a week before, I figured out she didn't have a boyfriend, and then we ate mushrooms, and from there we're like, what do we do? And fireworks are going off, and we're like, let's go back to my house. And so when you're on mushrooms in a little studio kind of apartment, you get to know a lot about each other, and that's how we got to know each other. And then 3 nights later, on July 7th, I said, "Hey, you want to go get sushi?" And then that's when it all. That was our first date. So eating mushrooms on 4th of July in San Diego, and then I asked her to go uh, on a go. I didn't say on a date. Like let's go have some sushi.
When did you know
Yeah,
that there was that attraction? It sounds like there was that
absolutely.
attraction there from the very beginning. Was it just like the
Well,
physical, she's
no,
beautiful?
she was totally,
Okay.
she
And did
thought I
she
was
feel
this
that for you?
crazy madman. And, but she also respected the fact that I was a robotics engineer, right? So like prestige, kind of like this dude at least has his shit together, but he's also a loose cannon. So she was also very smart. She was already had a, she had a good corporate job, and it's like there was the traction right from there. She was like the square pants, kind of like very rigid, and I'm like let's go, and that's what she loved about it, and she was just cool. So there you go.
Did you find that like that was the balance? So that would you say there's like a high polarity in your energies?
Yeah,
Is in that help
she's
balance?
she's still like a very very go go go, but I'm like on business side, but I've always been like very the spontaneous, go with things, and it's that balance, right? She said she was very like regiment, like disciplined, and then I've given her that opportunity, like permission to be fun, and let's do this, and don't take life so seriously. And she got to know the story about my father, and you never have a expiration date, or you never know when your expiration date may be. And from there, it's incorporated into like her DNA too. Like we're not guaranteed another day, so she was very attractive. Like, oh wow. And when we'd go take trips, we're like, we may never get an opportunity like this to do it again. So why not do it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
What a beautiful philosophy. Do you find, at you're 24, is she older,
She's less
younger,
than a
about the
year.
same
She's like
age?
360 days older than me. So I'm May 30th. I'm 49. She just turned 50. She's June
Mm,
3rd. Yeah.
okay. So about the same age. For me, when I remember being 24, I did not have the skills, the communication skills, or really any type of self development work at all. I was a mess, right? I don't know where you guys were, but the curiosity is, you know, how did the relationship work? Was it super flowy? Was it difficult? Was there a
Well,
lot of
it
hard
was
times in
when
the
you're in a
beginning?
like, have you ever been in the corporate world? Yeah.
Definitely.
To
Yeah.
me, like, so we've been entrepreneurs doing our own businesses for the last nearly 20 years. And when you're working for the corporate world, life is easy because you're working for somebody else. You can blame other people of this. So for the first 10 years of our life that we knew each other, we were both in the corporate world. And there wasn't really any arguments. She did her job, I did mine, worked the least amount that you could without getting fired. And and then it wasn't we didn't have our first fight until I call it the $5 burrito story. Like, I mean, I'm sure we had a couple little tiffs here and there, but we didn't have our first like major thing. And this was probably 10 years later. And it was when we knew that we are going to lose everything financially. We had vested in five different houses, golf course development deal, and all this, right? And from having millions to buying a $5 burrito, and you get a non-sufficient fund fee because you don't have money in the bank, so they charge you $35. And that was the first one to where, and my daughter was already just born, so she was not even a year old, and we never had an argument really until then. And then it was like, what the fuck are we gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And the decision that we made was like, well, let's sell all our shit and just go travel the world. And there you go. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Do you feel that your core values are very similar? You say that she's very different in the way she sort of attacks the world or goes about it, but What do you feel like the core values are underneath that you guys
Mm,
share? Because I hear one is
yeah.
maybe adventure and fun, but I'm sure there's
Well,
many other
as a
ones.
family, we're very close as a family. Even with my daughter, she's 16, well 17, but we've been very close. So I guess some family values. We're very when we say we're about integrity. We went to an event before my daughter was born. It was a what is it called? Oh man, I can't think of it. But for 3 straight days, they grilled in your brain just the word of integrity, landmark forum, and it was like this boot camp. Did you go to the landmark
Yeah,
forum or heard about it? Yeah.
I've done
Okay.
Landmark
Yeah.
and
So like
Hoffman. Yeah.
that's where we like got to realize what, integrity, hit it in your brain. Say you're going to do something, you do it, right? Your words, it's not, you don't say you're going to do something, you don't flake off, you say it. Your word is your bond. And I think that's something from when we first started meeting where that was just a big part of our life. And it's also something with our daughter, values like that. Another one, when we're on our discovery phase of traveling the world, we'd never been religious. Like I think my wife, she was Catholic, right? And I was Methodist, right? Christian and stuff, but we've never been religious. We never went to church, but we're very spiritual, especially like living in Bali, right? It's Hindu. That's one of the beautiful things. I just love the culture and the, like, the spirituality they have, giving the offerings every single day. I mean, I love grabbing things from different religions and like, I'm gonna incorporate this in, I'll incorporate this in. And we've kind of done that throughout our lives, raising our daughter, being entrepreneurs. We've always spoke at events and went to events. So my daughter's been to like 100 events, and we read all these books, and she's listened to books and like things like happiness is a choice. I remember listening to that like 20 years ago from Deepak Chopra, and he's in, I don't know, it was Deepak choice, like, he's like, every happiness is a choice and you can shoot. And I'm like, what? Happiness isn't a choice. If something bad happens, you got to be mad. But it's simple as that. So just little things to where we're like, that
Yeah.
works. Just like put it into our tool belt. So we've kind of came together and on that, and just discovery through life versus what's been prescribed, or what we grew up in. We kind of just like at a point when we were going out of the matrix and leaving, all of our beliefs were like start second guessing everything, right? And even now, it's even just becoming way more apparent where like certain people are like, yeah, like, how do you not see it? It's all BS. You can't believe it, It's like, call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but yeah,
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 we get a lot of that in Bali for sure. Uh, so I
yeah,
hear that integrity is a big one. A big curiosity that I always have with couples that have these beautiful relationships and families is like, what work
uh,
did they do to get there, right? At 24, surfer, living in a shack. Maybe you learn these skills through your family or your parents, but
yeah,
most of us didn't, right? So you mentioned Landmark. That was a
yeah. It was just
transformational
one
one
of
for you?
many. It was the only reason I went to Landmark
Mm.
was we're an affiliate marketing personal development company, and the highest income earners said you got to do Landmark. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I didn't even know what it was. I'm like, I go, if it makes you more money, and this is like going go to it. I'm like, okay. I was in like personal
Oh
development
man.
events where just like I was just an open book, you know. When I was a robotics engineer, I was like, nah, this is this way. But then I remember going to an event, there was like 2,000 people. I'm looking at everything, I'm trying to poke holes into it, and I'm like, well, maybe they just want a better life. I'm like, what if everything that we grew up to, go to school, get a job, and have a family, it's like all messed up? Like, is that what you're supposed to do? I just started questioning everything. So, it's like, integrity, but it's like it just kind of happened from experiencing life versus, yeah, a lot of our beliefs and stuff we had to let go. I mean, even during COVID and stuff, it was, I thought was one of the most beautiful times here in Bali. My wife was going through self-discovery of like, who am I? Like, and so she was getting into, plant ceremony, medicine, going to ceremonies. Like, she was like a frequent flyer, man. I think it was like every couple weeks, and I was like, man, it was like, I'll go every once in a while. I was meeting her halfway, but she's just, we're trying to, we go like hard on certain things, and you go through like a phase of like, and then it's like, I guess we create problems to go on to the next phase of our life. It's a never ending journey.
Mm. That it is. I would love to hear some of those sort of landmark or other processes or plant ceremonies or whatever you felt really helped you in your personal development, being a man that
Yeah.
can be an amazing father and husband. I want the world to know what are some options that have affected people in
Hmm.
really positive
Yeah.
ways.
Now wait.
You said you did a lot. Name a few that
Well, the
that
most
are
recent, and
stand
I've been
out.
doing this for the last like probably 4 or 5 years. Wake Up Warrior. It's it's a movement. It's predominantly men that are married, have children. It's from Garrett White. He has fundamentals of like the core four things you do. Just very a way of doing things, being the best. You know, the core four. And I also share this. I've been sharing this when I speak on stage or give talks, and I'm going to do it right now. But it's like it's having business on one side, having the relationship with your wife and your kids. So it's like your balance, your spirituality, and then also like your health, right? And when one of these is out of phase,
Mm.
it affects all the other ones. And I think this has been probably the most profound one that's really made me. It's that, and I'm still in, and now creating our own kind of brotherhood as well. It's left the most impact. It's kind of taken me to this. You have to be a strong man, and what I mean by being a strong man, it's not just being like, oh, this hardcore man, but being able to really love your wife and love your kids, and being, having that relationship with them. And this is things that you check off on your list every day. And we have our groups. I think that's probably been my most profound, as of like earlier, going to like entrepreneurial events. We've been to the Tony Robbins events, and a lot of our other ones were personal development, life changing ones. The landmark ones were pretty life changing. It's like 3 days that like were life changing that you don't want to do again, but you're so glad you did it. You know? Yeah. But the Wake Up Warriors like been pretty much my rock over the last 4 years. And then just, yeah,
Is
it's a
that a
men's
men's
group.
group? I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah. And there's some women, but it's predominantly for men. Yeah. And he's out of the US.
Mm.
He's been doing it for about 12 years. I remember seeing a video probably about 6 years ago, and I was so intrigued. Like, it just spoke to me of, men, we're all, not just men, but anyone, we're liars. We don't tell the truth. We hide our, it's like, it's always been about like hiding emotions, but like just telling the freaking truth, doing what you say, and living by a code. It's, yeah. Once you start going full in, it becomes who you are. So that's left the biggest impact, and still is. I'm like hardcore in it. Yeah.
Beautiful. What does that look like? Is that
Yeah.
a daily practice or
Yeah.
a
It's
weekly practice? Is it like
it's
online? Is it a
online.
whole course? I'm not.
Uh, but even before the apps, there's stuff like where you talk about your core four, and you get a couple points when you on your health. So on each one of these, you're checking off. You kind of like a check off your off the box of like, are you hitting this target? Like one of them's, did you train? Did you sweat today? Did you eat healthy? Checking out the box. Your business, did you actually employ something that you said you were gonna like uncover it and then declaring it? Did you leave a note to your loved one or someone out there? Leave these like note, voice message, something that
Mm.
uh, that shows you care. Spirituality. Did you meditate? Did you write about it? So that's just one aspect of it, and then there's the business. But it kind of gave me the foundation where I created being a surfer, and I was like, I got to have some type of method uh, to go off of. So I created a surf method, and it kind of incorporates that. S is starts for start your day with success. U is uncover, discover, declare. The R is revenue generating activities. The F is family and friends. So start your day up with success. Essentially, I get up at 4:28 a.m. no matter what every single day. And I do these little wins. Like I get out of bed, that's a win. Go downstairs, I have a quick meditation, I pray, and then I go walk. Because if I have two legs and I have the power and I'm healthy enough to walk, it's like at least you can walk. So if I was getting up at 4:28 a.m. and I'm supposed to go do an hour CrossFit before 5 a.m., I'm probably not it's going to be sustainable. But I just take the dogs out. I walk about a couple kilometers in the dark right through here in the things, listen to an audiobook. So then I'm listening to audiobook or a podcast, and then I'm listening to something that I can employ into my business. So when I get done, then I actually utilize it into my business. So that's part of the uncover, discover, and declare. So I employ it into my business, not just listening to things and not doing anything with it. And then from structured all the way until noon, I do revenue generating activities. What are the things that are going to bring revenue to your business? Making content where uh, you're creating leads. It's sales process, bringing people, working with your employees that are leading people through a sales cycle to where you're bringing revenue, not just being busy all day. Are you actually doing shit that brings revenue to the business? Then after that, I do other things, but I have three strong
Mm.
things I do every single day. And then I have F is family and friends, family and fun. And so usually by like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock is, have a wine, enjoy the time with the family, you know?
What a beautiful
Uh,
framework and what an easy way to remember it with the SURF there. And I think there's a lot to talk about in there, but I think just understanding that you found a framework where you found your priorities and you're committed to them is really what I'm hearing underneath all of that is, this what brings you joy and success. And how long have you been doing that sort of
no,
methodology for? Is this new?
I,
Has it been
I
going on for
created
a
that,
while?
probably about 8 years ago, maybe a decade ago. And then you just start refining it a
Mm.
little bit finer and finer, and coming a little bit more in tune. And so, like, even that, I never actually had an alarm clock. I never listened to an alarm clock until about a couple months ago. And I just said, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to get out of bed every single time, no
Hmm.
matter what. And so, what it does, it gives me a little bit of discipline to where I was like, all right, I'm going to bed earlier. There's just like, I'm just not compromising on certain things. Over the weekend, I'll, sleep into maybe 6 o'clock or something like that. But this it gives me a framework where I'm like, I know what I can do from here to here. And so it's, yeah, I've been doing it for nearly probably a decade, but just kind of refining it and switching things up. And then it switches too. When you're traveling, it's a whole different ballgame than when you're here. So, you know, time zones, even dealing with clients, to me, it's like dealing with like USA clients. I don't mean dealing, but we're like the time zones are the exact opposite. So I have to get shit done in the early time of the day because I don't like staying up late.
Do you have any frameworks for your relationship or your family that are similar? For example, something I hear a lot is
Hmm.
relationship check-ins
Yeah.
every week or Sunday or month or 2 weeks. whatever it is, they have these check-ins, and I'm curious if you have any of these sort of frameworks for the relationship also.
Yeah,
It
no,
seems
I
like you're a
am.
framework
And
guy.
there's we do date night every single week, and typically we'll do it like twice. So and it's where it's just us. Put your phones away, no other friends, and it's just us. And that's, but there's and when it comes down to sunset time, that's when we're together. There's a lot of times in the last few years as we do a lot of colliding.
Mm,
Like it's it's not sweeping things under the rug anymore and not talking about it to where you explode. It's not really a framework, but we're we're not afraid to share when something needs to be addressed, and we hit it head on. And it's not the most prettiest, but I remember
mm,
for so many years just like it's just better not to talk about it. But then it builds up over the years, and you're like, God, it's like, but you got me thinking on having the framework with the wife and stuff. I was like, I really don't have it. Might have to create one.
mm. Well, I think if you gotten this far, you might
No, you
be
can always
okay.
make it better,
I don't know.
man.
Maybe there's always room
Absolutely.
to upgrade, I'm sure. But I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds like date night
Yeah.
and sunset
Yeah, and
is
and
the
and we do.
framework.
And
You know,
every morning we
that's
have
a
even though I
consistent
get up and I
framework,
take the
which is
dogs for a walk, come back, and then we have our time to where we have a prayer together, a little meditation, sit at the altar. We've been doing that for the last like 4 years. Uh, so I guess we do. With that, it totally is. Yeah.
that's a framework. That's the
Shit.
ritual.
I guess I do.
Yeah.
I need to make it more. I need to make it more
It
structured though.
sounds like it's just let's make an
I'm gonna
acronym
have to.
for it.
It's got to surf. I got to do something. I don't know. Maybe I'll make it. Maybe I'll make it surfing. Make it the
All right.
ing or something, or surfboard. I don't
Ing,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Surfing. You'll figure it out. So you basically one one night a week you're just setting time aside just to make sure it's
Yeah.
just you with no phones, you and your wife. And then you're saying you're sitting. You got the internet got a little choppy. You said you're
Yeah. We
sitting in
have a
front of the
prayer
altar and
together,
kind of
and
reflecting
yeah,
or
we have a little prayer
praying. You
together, and
called it
then we
together.
kind of share
Yeah.
what we're grateful for. Some things to where it's like sharing moments together. It's weird, man. When I was like, even with my
Mm,
father, my mom, there was like this never this like open vulnerability or sharing emotions really. You just didn't do it. So it's, and I'm not talking about just
mm,
crying and like, oh, for me, like I'm talking about like just being real, being honest, and just sharing your feelings, but sharing the feelings that are relevant, not just spewing a bunch of garbage out just to make yourself feel better, but like sharing real raw, being relevant. Oh.
mm. You said that you're really hitting things head on. If something needs to get talked about, you'll talk about it instead of letting it build up and exploding. Um, I'm curious here if one, do you feel everything should be said? In your experience, I've noticed in a lot of these interviews,
Hmm.
people take different approaches to it. Some people are like full transparency. And then it's funny, the ones that have been together like 40, 50 years say things like, actually, not full transparency. There's certain things, just sit
Yeah.
on them with yourself for a while. And then if they, before you kind of just let it out, because, some sayings are, once you
Yeah.
fire a bullet, you can't take it back, right? Or once a pot's cracked, it will never be the same again. I've heard people say that in some of
Hmm.
these interviews, and I thought that was interesting. um, where is that line of sharing all your feelings and
Well, I think
keeping
it
things to
comes down
yourself?
to the real. It's raw, but it's got to be relevant, right? That relevancy is the big thing.
Hmm.
And it's not just, I'm going to spit out everything. There's could be stuff like she doesn't need to know about, right? It's not sharing everything, but it's not. it's also not hiding your feelings. If you want to, like, if you know that there's going to be something, like, if I just keep on hiding this is going to blow up. Might as well, like, let's address it right now. We don't have, like, I don't have a set thing, but I've noticed that we collide. But when you collide, we're able to get over things, right? It's like it's also like calling each other out on their shit too, when you're like, if you're not in your integrity on doing stuff. And it's just like, it's not about being mean, but it's addressing things that big people need to talk about versus suppressing them and just like sweeping them under the rug. So I don't have a set, like, I spew out everything. No. No, and there's a lot of things now that I'll just do, and instead of giving lip service, and I'm like, I'm just gonna do it, and then I'll tell her about it. But then she'll already know. So there's stuff that I'm working on where I'm just like, yeah. And probably the reason I'm doing that is because there's a lot of shit that I've never done that I said I was going to start, and I start, and then I never finish. So I'm like, you know what? Might as well just better fucking do it, and then you can talk about it. So I go both ways. No.
Mhm. You know, I think I would add to what you're saying is not just irrelevant, but
No.
also communicate with love, right? Like not trying to let someone know they're doing something wrong, but really just making sure that, that's what I've learned in my life. There's been points when it's like sometimes you just want your partner to know that they hurt you, but the way you do that can be very different, right? Like you did this as opposed to, hey, I felt hurt, and owning that feeling as opposed to, that blame, and that can be tough, like staying in that loving spirit, um, when
No.
your heart set.
Yeah. No. It's like we do everything with love. It's not to, we got to be examples too. Is like with our, even with our daughter. Like, I want to, my, my big thing is I want to show her how a man should treat a woman. And so, like, if you have men coming into your life, I don't want you settling for anything less. And it's not by me, but it's by how I treat my wife. And I've always even said to my daughter, it's like, your mom comes first. And this is, it's like I'm doing, because I want to be able to share on, she shouldn't expect anything less. Uh, in a relationship, how someone treats you. So it's all out of love, you know. Uh,
So, how do you feel a man should treat a woman from a
yeah.
man's perspective, from yours? What are some things? What
Yeah.
are the
I was gonna
practical
say,
parts of
man, that
that?
was a wide open question. I mean, even going down the chivalry, even though we don't have cars as much here in Bali, but doing the simple things, opening the doors for your lady, you know, taking the chair, pushing it in, pushing out, simple stuff like that. It's man, like, for instance, I picked up my wife is gone for 2 weeks. Her father passed away. I came up to the airport, surprised her, bring some flowers for her, you know, bring bring the roses, showing that you care. Like, every single day, I tell her I love her. Every single day, I sit and pray with her. I think that's a big connection, having those connections. I remember having it when we were both in the corporate world. There was, I don't know if there was, you just kind of, society, wake up, get your coffee, and go to work, and then come home and see it. We've been together, you know, been in the same business, treating each other with respect, and um, I think just a lot of the simple things. You protect your woman. simple things like walking on the side of the road where I'd protect my wife and my daughter, and I'd cross the road. Just little things, man. Yeah,
I don't know why, but when you were speaking, I felt a little teary, and you know, maybe I just hear the love that you have, and that's beautiful, and it's really fantastic to feel that from a man who's wants to step up and be that best father, that best husband, and takes it seriously, and just that. I've heard from women in interviewing, the thing that they want most is presence. They want the
yeah,
masculine just to be with them. And I mean, to me, that's you're being with your wife every morning, and can only imagine like how much of a bond that creates, and how the feminine could love that
yeah.
and really appreciate
I
that.
respect that. I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, it's it. Yeah, it's being with them and acknowledging them, seeing them, for who they are. Hmm. And I haven't figured it out yet.
How do you do that?
It's just getting better every day on yeah. How do you do that?
I don't know.
Listen, one of the best books I've listened that made probably the most profound impact was Way of the Superior Man. I listened to it like 6 years ago, and
Hmm.
we're like, I think the best one,
That's
it was
David Data.
there's a YouTube video where, have you ever just type in on YouTube, nail in the head, and it has a woman that has a wood with a nail or no, she just has a nail in her head, and she's like, I just got this aching pain, and the husband's like, it could be that you're just always trying to solve problems, but it's and he goes, nah, I think and then finally he just like, and he doesn't say anything, and then after like another 2 minutes, oh, that was the best conversation. He didn't say anything, and I did that once, where I just listened to my wife. I didn't solve any problems. Women want to dance, men want to solve problems, and when I stopped solving the problems, our life became more harmonious. Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one, and it's
Totally.
against all of our instincts, right? That's a learned behavior. That
I
that
couldn't
is
believe when it
that
worked.
is
I was
not
just
an
like,
instinctual
wow.
behavior,
And
man.
I remember after
Uh,
like four, she's like, that
what?
you
What?
listen, you were so, I'm like, holy cow, that was beautiful.
I didn't
Yeah.
say anything. I didn't say anything. I also laughed about that too. I had a conversation with someone and just really listened, and I would just summarize what I heard them say using a lot of nonviolent communication techniques. And at the end, I don't think I said a single thing about
Hmm.
myself. Literally nothing. I was just listening and saying, "Oh, I hear you saying that you feel this way." And at the end, they said, "That was the best conversation I've ever had." And I'm just thinking, it was because it was
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
it didn't say anything, but what a beautiful lesson for you to learn that the feminine wants to really just they want your presence and they want you to really hear them.